Good afternoon to everyone, students, presenters, the Faculty of Humanities in general. It's been a privilege of ours to meet on a Thursday afternoon in the series of study lifelong learning workshops entitled Getting the FHE Owls on the Road to Graduate. This week, we're concentrating on learning the FHE way. And so we have several presenters and several activities for you to do this afternoon. As per usual, it is being recorded, and like the first session, will be circulated and placed on the faculty's YouTube channel for future access. I am Dr. Stanley Griffin. I am your Deputy Dean for Undergraduate Matters, and the privilege has been mine with the support of the faculty's guild reps and academic affairs subcommittee, in addition with Mr. Sector Stevenson, or faculty marketing and business development officer, as well as the lecturers and staff to organize this series of workshops on your behalf. So we're going to start off thinking about what are the credit requirements for success in our faculty, and then we'll go straight into the series of activities planned for today. Let me do one quick thing so we don't have bells ringing in our heads. There we are. So I want us for the next few minutes, which will be short, to think about what are the requirements for success as it relates to your credits. Now, it's going to be very basic. You might be saying you're wasting your time, but it's actually so basic because so many people fail to do the very basic things. All right, so the actual success starts upon your registration, and you have been given the link to your faculty handbook. Your faculty handbook, folks, is your starting point and your guide throughout your entire period of study, whether you're full-time or part-time. And it really is your source for inspiration, one could say, source of direction. It really should outline what you are doing in your programs over the period of time that you are with us. So you ought to use the faculty handbook for the year you were admitted. That's the rule. You came in a particular year, the year of admittance, that faculty handbook is your personal guide to your studies. And so, quite frankly, you ought to know it like the back of your hand, right? It is essential for figuring out what you need to do to be successful in your studies. The handbook outlines your program requirements. Every program will have its own stipulations. And so the handbook is there to tell you what you need to know, what you need to do, and what you need to pass, and the various, details for your program requirements. And finally, all university regulations for undergraduates and faculty regulations are, for your reading convenience, placed in the handbook. And so things about leave of absence, things about medical leave, if you miss an exam or you fail an exam, what you're supposed to do, things about academic, if you're placed on academic warning, or if you've been required to withdraw, if you want academic forgiveness, it's all in the handbook, folks. And so you need to make use of it. It is literally created every single year for you and with you in mind. Now, as a Faculty of Humanities and Education, we basically offer 3 types of bachelor degrees. We have the Bachelor of Arts, we have the Bachelor of Fine Arts, and we have the Bachelor of Education. You'd be surprised to know how many people don't know what program they're doing. They don't even know the name of their degree. They don't even know the type of degree they're doing. So a man could let them know what a B.Ed, and they would be as clueless as somebody hitting them with a BFA. So for folks, for the first thing you need to do when you get accepted is recognize your own degree. And in that recognition, you'll be told whether you're doing a major, a double major, or a special, a major, a double major, or a special. A major simply means you're doing at least 33 credits in one particular discipline or one particular area of study over the various 3 levels. Now, we have 3 levels. Some people make the mistake and call it 3 years, but sometimes it don't really add up to be 3, direct or 3, flush years. It really is about levels. And so you ought to be mindful of the number of credits you are required to accomplish, you are required to pass, you are required to have earned over those 3 levels. If you're doing majors, it means that you need credits in at least 2 disciplines. If you're doing a special, you need 54 credits over the 3 levels. And so each program has its specific requirements that you need to be aware of. And this is the challenge. You need to be taking the right course at the right level. We have had instances where persons in first year sign up for third year or third level courses, and is in the middle of the semester, they realize, hey, this is the wrong level, and they start to fail out, and it's one series of bad events simply because somehow we did not recognize the courses that you're taking at the right level. So we're going to be talking about that, but the first thing you need to figure out is what type of program you're doing, what is the name of your degree, and what are the credit requirements for that particular program. And so when you are accepted, you're either accepted as a full-time candidate or with full matriculation, or as a part-time candidate having lower matriculation. As a full-time candidate, you'll have the full-time candidates have a number of courses or credits they take each semester. They have a number of years in which to complete and so forth. Same thing with the part-time. Part-time persons in our faculty simply means that you may have been accepted to the university on the low matriculation. Low matriculation meaning you did not necessarily have the requirements at the CAPE level. And so based on your CSEC accomplishments, we accepted you in, with the idea that you will take less courses, move at a slower pace, adjust yourself accordingly. And according to the handbook, after acquiring 15 credits, you could transfer to full-time status. In other words, know your status, people, because it will determine the length of time you have with us in your programs and the credit requirements you need to acquire, the credits you need to gain each semester. Now, I literally copied and pasted from the handbook for your reading convenience. And you will notice here that at the end of, let me just clear the screen, at the end of each semester, you need to have at the end of each year or at the end of each level, you need to have a number of credits, which will include your foundation courses, your foreign language, if you have to do that, and so on and so forth. And so you need the handbook to guide you. You need to know your program because it will detail how many of those 30 credits should come from the department, how many credits should come from other departments in the faculty or other programs in the faculty, and how many credits you can get from courses taken outside of the faculty. All right, we're not selfish, we're not keeping you to ourselves. The privilege is yours to take courses in other faculties, but that must be managed and must be done within the scope of the regulations for your program. So there are the markers of achievement for full-time as a full-time status student. By the end of your second semester, you should have passed at least 4 courses. By the end of your 6th semester, right, let's argue, second year, you should have passed at least 8 courses. By the end of your 8th, 13, end of your 10th, 25, end of your 12th 30 courses. All right. So again, same thing at the part-time status, 4 courses, 8 courses, 13, 25, 30. So there are markers there ensuring that you would have met a particular number of credits, even if you have to take things slower because of whatever reason, maybe, either financial, or you find, I have a friend, she's in Barbados, and she can't deal with regular load of study. So she basically decided, and every year she tells herself, I ain't doing this because I want to do this and I'm going to take my time. So she registered for 1 course or 2 courses and, little by little. And so there is no real rush. We ain't pushing you, but we really want you to accomplish what you signed up for in a timely manner. Now, the reality is, you may not necessarily, life can happen, and you may not necessarily meet the GPA requirement of 2.0 for each semester. If that happens, according to the regulations, copied and pasted, you will be placed on academic warning. If in that semester you've been placed on academic warning, and the following semester you've also been placed on academic warning for under a GPA of 2.0, you'll be immediately listed as a student who will need to spend a year out. Now, there's a whole process to that, to this thing. It's not that we are trying to throw you out, but really and truly in that time, in that period of warning between your department and my office and the faculty office, we will be having conversations with persons who have been listed as to what the real issue is. Do you really need a year off? Do you need to make some adjustments? Do you need to change programs? Are you, and what are the general issues there? And so it is not something we take lightly. We are not about kicking people out. We do have a very thorough process of engaging with persons who have been placed on academic warning and requirements to withdraw. In fact, this entire series of workshops came out of this concern for persons who are placed in this scenario. So we really hope, we can, reach out and capture persons before they're placed in this thing. Nevertheless, how do you avoid academic warning? How do you avoid being placed on the requirement to withdraw? Again, some of these questions are personal. You need to ask yourself even before you reach out, because the answers to these questions will also help us in your department office or your faculty office to make some, decisions, help you make some decisions that help to guide you accordingly. So firstly, am I doing too many courses? You could easily switch from full-time status to part-time. There's no shame, there's no disgrace, ain't about to hide. All right. If you're doing too many courses, if you are working and attempting to do full-time status, chances are something is going to suffer. Hopefully it's not your grades, it could be your health. I mean, it can become overwhelming. And so the question is, am I doing too many courses? And so how can we as a faculty help you with that? Am I doing the right courses? As I said, we've had instances with persons signing up somehow for the wrong level courses and not having the prerequisite knowledge that would have come from courses at the other level that would have helped you to pass courses. So are you doing the right level courses at the right time? How am I handling my coursework? What support do I need? Do I need to speak to the classmates? Do I need to go by the writing center? We have, the Department of Language, Linguistics, and Philosophy, support the writing center, which basically helps you with your writing, your MLA, your APA. It gives you all the tools you need to write better. Are my coursework assignments suffering because of my weakness in writing? Am I still interested in the program? We've had persons who started a degree program because they like All right, my department is library and information studies. So they like library studies, and somewhere along the line, they prefer entertainment and cultural management. And so they've lost interest. And sadly, when you lose interest, your grades may suffer. So if you've lost interest in your program, there ain't no shame. You don't need to hide. Come forward and let us help you rethink and reassign your learning. The other thing is, am I healthy? And this is a major one. Illness, mind over matter, matter over mind. If your body ain't right, it will affect your output. If your mind ain't right, it will affect your output. Financially, if it ain't right, it will affect your output. So how can we help you to be as healthy and as productive and your best self as possible? And we do have processes for time off. Do I need time off? Do I need to go sit down and watch a son for a semester? And so we have the leave of absence. We have course drop. You could take less courses. You could change programs. There are lots of opportunities, lots of regulation, opportunities to help you lessen the load and achieve your goals in the most successful, in your healthiest, in your best self. So as a faculty, your support system for learning in the faculty literally starts in your classes. If I could see my screen properly, give me a second. You have the privilege, you ought to have access to your class lecturers, your program lecturers. You can go by the writing center. You can be assigned to the writing center. You could go by the writing center. Your departmental office, the secretaries, the administrators in the department office are a set of caring people. They will look after you. And, you know, if you still need more help, your heads of departments are willing. The faculty office is willing. You have my role as deputy dean definitely willing. And you can't miss it. The dean is overly willing to help you. In addition, you have your class reps, because each class is supposed to have a rep elected by the students or selected by the students to be a mediator between the class and the lecturer. You also have that at the departmental level, and you definitely have a team of students working as your representatives at the faculty level. So really, you are not alone. You are fully supported at the Faculty of Humanities and Education, and we really want to see all our owls and owlets being their best self, learning and achieving to the best of their ability. So please reach out. Please make every effort to maximize the support system that we have in the faculty. Notice, I only talked about in the faculty. I didn't talk about the wonderful people at Student Services and Development or Academic Support Unit. I mean, as a university, we are really here to support you. So please reach out and please maximize your time with us. Thank you very much. I now would want to proceed with the rest of the program. I don't have the paper in front of me. Give me a second. And so, Miss Larmond, you're next. Are you? And so, Miss Larmond, you started off with us last week. And so it's a privilege to have you back. And I now hand over the meeting to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Griffin. And I'd just like to say good afternoon to all my FHE owls. My presentation today is really about your pre-classroom, pre-preparation, before you get into the classroom. I'll do a little bit of post as well, but we'll start with our pre-preparation before you get into the classroom. And as we interact today, because today is a very interactive session, I'll be sharing with you, I'm going to share my screen. I'll be sharing with you a few things, and we're going to really just get into it. So the first thing, before we even start to studying, start to think about, getting into our classrooms to start learning and so forth, we need to know what our learning style is. So today, our session, this first segment of the session is going to start by us trying to identify our learning styles, right? So I'm going to put in the chat a link for you to find out. You're going to go through the link for us, for you to really find out what your learning style is. And we're going to take about a minute or two to do it. And then we're going to have a short discussion about the different learning styles, right? So the link is in the chat. I'm going to ask you to just click on the link for me and just take a few minutes. I'm going to give you about a minute or two to do the assessment, right? And then after you've done the assessment, we're going to have a short discussion. Just put a thumbs up when you have completed the assessment for me. Thanks. Right. Trying to see everybody. Right. Gonna move quickly. So if you were with us last week, sorry about that, everyone. So if you attended the session last week, you would have noticed that we're interacting via Google Jamboard. And so I've also put in the chat the link to our Jamboard today. So each person can just type their learning style for me. As soon as you've completed, I'm just asking that each person type the learning style that they got using the link to the Jamboard. You should be completing. All right, it should be completed by now. All right, so I have a few right here. Right, let me just pull them up a little. All right, so I'm gonna ask, for some input right here. So the visual learners in the space, and I'm gonna just call on different persons to tell me, what type of learner they are based on what they got from the assessment done, the VAR learning styles. So this is Patterson, Alina. I'm hoping Alenia. Patterson, could you tell me the learning style that you got? And what it says about you? What about Esther? Esther, would you like to share?
Miss, you hear me?
Oh, yes, I'm hearing you now, Miss
So
Patterson.
it would be
Thank you.
kinesthetic.
Kinesthetic. Okay, tell me about yourself as a well, first of all, do you agree with that? Does it speaks to you? Are you that type of learner based on your personal assessment?
Yes, Miss.
Yes, okay. Tell me about the kinesthetic learner that you are.
Miss,
What?
I like hands-on things. I like to do things myself.
Yes.
Being that I am an information technology major, Miss. I
Oh.
like to solve problems, and I have to like see it and do it so I can understand it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. And that's exactly what it is, right? You have to feel, touch, and so forth. You know, the kinesthetic learner like to be hands-on. Let me hear another person, Esther, and I'm not going to take all of them today, but I just like to hear from Esther, Richard Waugh. Esther, would you like to share with us? All right.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, I am hearing you now. Thank you.
Okay. I'm an auditory learner. I like to listen to things. I think it's twofold for me. It leans more to auditory, but I think I'm also a visual learner as well because I like to see and hear things. I'm a lover of books. I really do not like online books. I prefer to have the books in my hand to turn the pages myself and absorb the information. So I think I'm a bit I'm both visual and auditory.
Visual and auditory, right? But what do you think is your dominant one?
I think auditory is my dominant. Because I will sit and listen to things and I'm able to remember it more clearly than actually seeing it.
Okay. All right. Thanks for sharing, Esther. All right. So what we will find is that, you know, most of the times when we do these tests regarding our learning styles, we will have various different types of learning styles that will be coming up. Some of us are visual auditory, some of us are reading and writing, some of us are kinesthetic and auditory and so forth. But normally we say to students that we would say to you, which one is your dominant learning style? When you are studying, when you are learning the content, which one allows the information to pop at you, how you engage with the information, how do you normally like, and how do you normally respond to engaging with the information? So we normally look at the dominant learning style, not that other ways you won't learn in other ways, but your dominant learning style is normally your go-to. So we normally say to students, let us do a learning style test and see what's your dominant style. So when you go to class, first of all, when you are preparing for class, you know how exactly you'd want to engage with the material. And when you are in class, you'll also know how to engage with the material and how you will learn from a lecturer. You know, that is probably someone who comes with slides or someone who comes and just talk and so forth. You might need to record the session and so forth. It depends on your learning style. You will know how to manage within the classroom setting and also before you prepare for class. And so that's going to lead us to our personal learner profile, right? And so when we're talking about learner profiles, normally you would say, but you know, learner profiles are really where a lecturer or or a teacher, you know, look at the different ways in which his or her students learn and tailor the material to engaging students in that way, right? So when teachers look at learning styles, it's normally learner profiles, it's normally in the context of say a primary setting or a secondary level. Teachers look at the different students, types of students within their class, and how they learn. Learn as it relates to how they access the information, how they engage with the content, and how they express themselves, you know, based on accessing the information and engaging the information. And so we want our students at the university level to start develop their own learner profiles. And from that, you will know how you access information within the space, right? How you engage with the material and how you express it when you try to develop your own learner profile. Now, what I'll do just because of time, I'll share with you a template via Google Doc to give you more information about how you can develop your own learner profile as it relates to accessing material before class, in class, engaging material before class and in class, as well as how you express yourselves within the different types of setting that you'll be placed in. So how will you express the information, how to know that you understand this content? How will you express the information when you're in class and you need to verbalize? How will you express this information if you're in a test setting, right? So I'm gonna share those information with you, and so that you will know how to develop your own personal learner profile, right? I am going to hand over to Ms. Williams at this time, who will delve a little bit more into the study cycle, because everything is really interlinked. So Ms. Williams, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Ms. Larmond. Good afternoon, everyone. Are you seeing me clearly?
Yes, we are.
We are.
Stop sharing.
Okay, yes. So I'll try to share my screen. Okay. Are you seeing a nice blue and yellow screen?
Yes.
Yes, we are.
Okay, great. So this will be a very, very short presentation, but we hope it will be impactful. You are allowed at any point in the presentation to just raise your hands or ask any questions. Are we ready to go? So you can just open your microphone or use your chat. What do you prefer, high school or university?
University.
Coffee or Red Bull?
Red Bull.
Coffee.
Sleep or study?
Sleep.
Study.
Morning time or nighttime?
Night.
Morning.
So see, that was just my little psychology trick to see if you really need a study session. And I did hear sleep or study. And the favorite answer, no matter where I go, is sleep. So we're going to talk a little bit about being in university now and how we have to manage all that sleep and study and being able to work in the morning, even if we are night persons, and so on. So let's talk a little bit. Are you familiar with the term study buddies?
Yes.
Have you ever heard it before? Yeah, and what do you find a study buddy to be? Who's a study buddy?
Well, for me, I don't call them study buddies. I call them my accountability partners.
Awesome.
But this is just my friend, and we talk for a little while, and then we discuss like what is that we need to do. And as soon as we finish discussing that, so we lay out the task at hand, and then we just get right into the work. And if any of us are getting distracted, then we say, hey girl, you know, pay attention to what you have to do. And so we just meet up to do work or study, hold each other accountable.
I think I'm going to borrow your word. Miss Larmond, this match is even better. Accountability partners. So now that we're at UE, you will learn that your accountability partners are no longer fully human, right? We have some accountability partners that are strange creatures. But as you say, they tell us what we need to do, hold us accountable, and show us the way. So here we have a little scramble on the left side and a little pictorial clue. So I've just given you 4 of your more important accountability partners. Can you unscramble the first one? It's a 2-word. It's 2 words. I'll just give you 3 seconds and then we'll move on to the next. Anybody has unscrambled the first accountability partner? No. How about the second accountability partner?
The first one is your course outline.
Beautiful, your course outline. You're not going to make it through the course perfectly or with a great advantage if you don't know what the course requires of you, what the course is asking you to do, and what your examiners are going to test as a mark of your learning. So your big accountability partner is your course outline. You must be familiar with it, and you must know week by week what it is requesting of you. How about accountability partner number 2? It's again
Past
another
papers.
2-word accountability partner.
Past papers.
Past papers, right? So your past, pardon me? Yes, it is past papers and past the format in which questions will be asked, how you will be asked, and how you need to organize your learning. What about the third accountability partner?
Your tutorials.
Am I still with you? Tutorials. Tutorials are nice ways for students to check what they know. So when you go to the tutorial, if there's a misunderstanding or something you didn't conceptualize quite well, or a missing piece of the puzzle, that's where this accountability partner, the tutorials, come in. And the last accountability partner that we're introducing today, do you recognize what it is? Another 2-word accountability partner? Pardon me? Your faculty handbook, and Dr. Griffin mentioned that earlier. So there's no way you can start studying or should start studying without engaging with these beautiful accountability partners. So yeah, those are answers. And another underused accountability partner is consultation times that your lecturers make available for you. They are a wonderful way to get motivation, direction, and to get a general sense of what it should be about. So just to say, learning is studying and studying is learning. So you being at a study skills session is all about a session on how do you learn. And we just want to run right for the lecture. Is that what is required or what is recommended in the science of learning? Lecture, is there anything you do before going to that lecture? Elena, anyone wants to answer? Okay, well, let's just get into it. You never ever just attend a lecture
Miss Williams, you're back? You're muted.
Oh, it seems I got disconnected.
Yes, unfortunately.
Okay, I'm going to connect using my mobile. I was sure I had stable, reliable internet, but I'm going to connect using my mobile.
No worries.
Yes, second, please. This should be a sturdier connection.
Right. Can you still share? Are you still hosting? Yes.
Yes. Are you seeing my screen now?
Yes, we are.
Awesome. So I was asking my lovely students if when they have a lecture, if they just show up for that lecture, or if there's anything that they do prior to going to that lecture. I didn't hear a response. So I was saying in the science of learning, we never ever show up for a lecture without first skimming the material that will be covered in the lecture. And your brain is so nicely designed that you don't have to read it in full. You don't have to even study it. You just want to be familiar with it. So you basically prime your mind with the information. And this should take no longer than 10 minutes. So 5 to 15 minutes. You just want to tell your brain, this is information that I am going to meet later today. When you go to class, you are required, however, to pay full attention. So Ms. Larmond just did with you your learning style. Your learning style is going to be important with how you attend or pay attention in your lecture. So if you're somebody who's a reading writing, you will take plenty notes. If you're auditory, you will listen and ask a lot of questions. If you're visual, you will make sketches. So you have to make sure when you go to class, you listen to the material. That's going to be very important, and you will see why. When you have finished class, you must do a review. Now, the science is different on when you do that review. For some people, they say, if you did not understand fully in class, you do the review immediately after leaving class. The other school of thought is, if you understood the material well in class, reviewing it at that point will not be helpful. So you skip a day or two and then you review. This is an art that we call spaced repetition. And spaced repetition allows your brain to get the information at different times. A little secret is that your brain is actually designed to forget. And a lot of people don't know that. So your brain takes in so much information in one day, 1 week, 1 month, that it can't store everything. It only stores what is important for your survival. And it knows that by your physical, emotional reaction to things, and also by the frequency with which it gets the information. So the idea is that if you study and space out your studying over time, your brain will recognize that you want to remember that information. So when you go to class, if you understand, you study again the same material 1 or 2 days after. If you don't understand in class, you read over immediately. And then 2 days later, you go over the material as well. So you prime, just skim over the lesson for class, go to class, pay attention. At some point, you review, and then you study. So the study part is a part that a lot of students struggle with because it is hard. It takes effort. And my next slide will actually show you how to study. But having gone to class and reviewed your material, don't think you will remember it. You actually will have to study that material, dissect it, ask yourself what it is in this material that you want to know, what is the scope of what you need to know, what you will be examined on, and understand that part of the material so well that no matter how the lecturer sets the exam question, you will be able to answer it. So it's not swatting, it is deconstructing the content and the material so that you can understand it. A mistake that students make when they study is that they fail to check their learning. So they study, then they close the book, they turn off the computer, and they go to sleep. Whenever you study, which is about 30 to 45 minutes, that's what your brain can manage, you have to close the book, step away, and check to see if you learned the material. If not, your brain will have trouble storing, organizing that material, and it will be difficult for you to recall in the future. So let's review. Before you go to every class, you must skim over the material. When you go to class, you must pay keen attention, making scribbles, drawings, notes, depending on your learning style. Now, kinesthetic learners have a difficult time in lectures, but when they come home, they can act out their lessons, they can teach the refrigerator, they can make up a dance to what they have studied, and they will remember. Then you review your material, and then you set a time to really spend some time getting into the meat of the matter, and then you test yourself via quizzes or so on to make sure you remember. So this is very important for you to learn. Now, when you come to study, there's a way to study that is effective. And here I've broken it down for you in 5 simple steps. The worst thing you can do is just take up your book and say you're going to study without having an idea of what you're going to study. So you must know what you're going to study. And what determines that is actually your course outline and what the lecturer has covered in the class for a particular day. So you take 1 to 2 minutes to decide what to study. Then you get all your material together, your notes, your past papers, everything. You sit in one. That takes about 45 minutes. We don't encourage you to study on and on and on. You must break. at some point. Am I still with you?
Yes, but if you could repeat your last points, because you kind of went at some point.
Okay, we have to organize our material and deconstruct it, look into it, study it, summarize it, make notes, so that we make sure the information that is in front of us actually means something to us and is actually interesting to us, and that will help us to remember. After you've done that, you must walk away from the material for 5 to 10 minutes. Step away from it, close the book, go and do something else, eat, relax, but you must walk away for 5 to 10 minutes. When you come back, you recap the material. So just go over and summarize. If you don't take a break, anything you think you remember could just be because you're getting cues from the material. You have to step away, get away from the material, then you come back now, you wrap up. You do a little quiz, you write down questions, ask yourself the questions, and this will solidify the material. Now, when you do the recap, you might find that you understand it very well, and you might say to yourself, should I continue studying? At that time, we suggest studying a different course. So the science of learning does not encourage you to study the same thing consistently. We ask that you do different courses, different subjects, so your brain maintains interest. If after the recap, you realize you didn't learn much, you can choose to continue studying, or you can take a break, or you can do a different task. So just to recap, when you sit down to study, you have to plan what you're going to study. And your course outline and your lecture notes are a good starting point. Then you have to integrate yourself with the studying so that the information means something to you. After 45 minutes or so, you take a good break, walk away for about 5 to 10 minutes, empty that information from your head, and then you come back and test how much of that information you remember. Having done that for about 5 minutes or so, you take a decision to continue studying or to take a break. And we encourage you to study a different content afterwards. So these are just some ways to enhance your learning. Spacing, as I said earlier, study the same thing over a period of time. Don't cram everything at once. Elaboration, you can make a sketch and then you can write more information around the sketch. So you're building out your knowledge as you go along. Dual coding. So even though you did your learning styles, you can write some of your notes, some of it you can sketch, some of it you can draw, some of it you can do different things. So your brain is getting the information in different ways. Interleaving, doing different subjects, switching between courses. So you're not just studying civilization, you're not just studying media, you're mixing up everything so your brain keeps interested. Retrieval, you have to train your brain to get out that information. In the exam room should not be the first time you're trying to get that information out. So you must do practice, you must do past papers, you must write down questions and answer them for yourself. And to make information real to you, you must have concrete examples. So everything you read or see, you must be able to bring a real life example to mind. And that will be one way of helping you to understand your content. So there could be so much more we're going into, but we'll stop for today. And I just want to ask you this question. How can you use AI, such as ChatGPT and other AI, to help you with your studying? This is a question I want you to think of because the assistance is there. Some of them will read for you, break down information in simpler ways or in ways that will better match you. Some of them will give you graphics for the text information that you have. So all the best with your studying, Owls. It was good talking with you, and we look forward to further sessions with you. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Ms. Williams. I should have introduced you formally to the group. So you are a student success facilitator who designs success interventions for both secondary and tertiary students. You have a master's degree in higher education, a bachelor's in applied chemistry, and diplomas in psychology and inclusive and intercultural education. And you're a trained educator and much appreciated advisor. So we're grateful for you. Having served as hall manager in Irving Hall, and you're a mom to Ayana, sorry, and you enjoy writing in your spare time. And so thanks for sharing with us. And we move on to the next presenter, who is, if I could get my screen up and running. Give me a second. So we're now thinking about in-class behavior. And Who will be doing that? My notes aren't clear.
Okay, so I did the in-class behavior in that session. So I
Ah.
think Ms. Larman will now do barriers to learning.
Great. I'm behind in my own notes. What you just said we should not be doing. All right, so Ms. Larman, you're with us? All right, we're not hearing you, but we're seeing your slides.
Oh, yes, we are at barriers to learning. And so, you know, Miss Williams would have touched on a number of points regarding in class. Well, you know, we would have looked at pre-class, the study cycle, you know, how do you prepare for class? When you are in class, you know, how should you engage the material and the content, or how should you engage while you're in class and so forth. And so within the whole study cycle, you know, you would have, you know, learned how to study, prepare to study, you know, what should you do before class, while you're in class, after class, and so forth. But there are a number of things that, you know, we have to be cognizant of that will sometimes prevent us from allowing that cycle to take its course. And so some of these things are physical barriers, mental barriers, emotional barriers, social barriers, cultural barriers, and academic barriers. And so as you think about those things, what are so, I want persons to just click back on the Jamboard for me, link that is in the chat, and tell me what are some of the barriers that you see as relates to physical barriers that might prevent you, you know, from really allowing the study cycle to be effective, or from, you know, this barrier from studying or learning. Not seen anybody on my Jamboard as yet. I'm gonna put back the link in the chat. The Jamboard link is here. Right, remember it's an interactive session. So there goes the link. Just click on it. And we're gonna go through the barriers quickly. I'm gonna share some with you. But I want you to just share a few with me as we go along. Things that will prevent you from making that study cycle an effective one. All right, so some physical barriers, I'm gonna go, because, you know, in the interest of time, I'm gonna just share some of mine with you. Some of my physical barriers are noise. If there's noise in the area, I can't study. I don't learn well when you know, the area is noisy. Sometimes distractions. If you're in your hall space and you're studying out in the say the living area, the common area, you know, everybody who passes, you know, distract you. If somebody walk past, you're distracted and so forth. If you're at home and your you know, your sister or brother or mother comes into the space that you're studying, a physical barrier right there. Some of our mental barriers though, let me hear some of the mental barriers. You can also open your mic and interact with me. If you have, for example, ADHD, you can't focus, right? If you become overwhelmed at times, if you just don't have the motivation or you did not get enough rest, right? So those are some mental barriers. Some emotional, go ahead.
If I might add, Ms. Larman,
Yes.
I have a very creative mind, and
Awesome.
sometimes it runs away from me.
Yes.
So if I'm studying, I have to really be intentional about it. Or if I'm in class, because my mind would tend to wander off thinking about something else. So that I find is a barrier for me.
Yes, and it's a real one. You easily get distracted by just thinking about different things that probably not connected or not related to the class. So you have to be very intentional about how you how focused you are about what is happening in the space at the time. And thanks for sharing that one, because a lot of us, you know, do sometimes have that kind of barrier mentally. Any emotional ones that you can think of? I see someone in the chat. Ah, yes. Anyone knows about any emotional? So one emotional barrier that I can think of at this point is, for example, burnout. Or if you have like a death in the family or something like that, it becomes emotionally overwhelming. And so you can't study. Anxiety, yes, it's real. That's another emotional one. Thanks for sharing, Esther. Now, let's look at cultural lovers problems, which our students go through a lot, right? Boyfriend, girlfriend situations, you know, lovers issues and so forth. Friendships, you know, dismantling when you come to university, you know, you don't have the same friends anymore. Persons gravitate to other persons, just relationships. Financial difficulties as well. Thanks, Esther. That's a real one, right? What about our social or cultural barriers? So we have students who are, you know, from different islands, or even students who are from different parts of this island, Jamaica, right? And so, you know, just language barriers, or just different types of, you know, if your student is on hall, not being able to prepare a particular dish or cook, or, you know, how they prepare meals, how they interact in the space. So some of those things, religion, you know, lecturers as well, yeah. You know, how your lecturer speaks. We had a student who told us about a lecturer who is from India, and they just could not understand how the person speak, right? So that's a barrier within itself, not understanding the way how your lecturer speaks. What about some social barriers? Let's just look at some social barriers. Peer pressure is a social barrier, right? And we have a lot of that. You know, you come, you want to study while your friends want to go to a party. Or, you know, somebody wants to do something else that you probably are not up to, and they want to influence you. Those kind of social, you know, barriers influencing you, peer pressure, excessive partying, or excessive social time within itself, right? Or another, the final one that I want to look at is our academic barriers. So one academic barrier that I can think of, and I would want persons to share as well, is not having a routine. Different schedules from your peers, so your study time coincide with their fun time. That's another one. Thanks for sharing that. Time conflict, sleep and time conflict. So when we look at time management, which is another session that's coming up, we look at like our time budget, because it's important for you to develop a routine while you are at university, right? It's important for you to know what you're doing at different points in time. We also look at kind of the shock within the academic space. You're coming from a space in like a community college or high school, which is a totally different learning environment than that of within the university space. Another one is not getting the grades that you normally get before, right? Thinking that you're always an A student, and now you're getting a B for something that you've written before and you've gotten an A. Now, you might be saying to yourself, why are we talking about barriers? Because in order for you to really improve, if you don't know what your barriers are, you can't look at, you know, ways of mitigating against those things. So for example, I touched on not having a routine as an academic barrier. Now that you know that you don't have a routine and you realize that really and truly I just float about every day, you're going to be intentional about having a time budget, making sure that you develop a routine. When you know your social barriers or your emotional barriers, you will say, okay, I'm going through some family issues at this point. I need to get counseling. So barriers helps you to tap into the university resources that can help you. Knowing your barriers will help you to tap into the resources that can help you to excel and succeed within the space. And I'm just gonna see another one. Yes, that's somebody said yes, that was a shock for them when they come on to the difference between university and like high school and college setting. I would just like to say thanks for sharing, and we will definitely share this material with you we'll share with Dr. Griffin, who will send out to different persons and so forth, right? But I'm going to hand over to Dr. Griffin now so he can introduce Mr. Bent, who will go into critical thinking.
Yes, but on our program, we have a short presentation by our faculty rep.
Oh,
study
nice.
tips. I just remembered that myself. So Courtney Lewis, please forgive. We're so grateful for your support of this initiative and your preparation of your 7 to 10 slides. That's what you said, 7 slides?
It's about 7 slides.
Right.
It's not very long.
Wonderful. And so you can share your slides and your presentation with us. You're
Okay.
hosting.
Yes.
And then we go straight into Mr. Bent, who's been with us.
Okay, I hope you all can hear me well.
We're hearing and seeing.
Okay.
So just full screen here. There we are.
Right. So I'm just gonna get into a few of the a few study tips that helped me as a student. I'm your academic affairs chairperson, by the way, and some group study tips. But I should let you know that a part or one of the topics that came up is active learning. And for us to really address active learning, we need to know what it is. Now, active learning involves learning through trial and error. Today, I had an experience where as a student, I came and I was really stressed out. And my teacher said to me, "You're okay. You can let go, you can unclench, because this is a process. It's trial and error. You're gonna have your moments where not everything is all together and it's not gonna be all great, but that's what learning is all about." Active learning involves learning through hands-on and tactile approaches, and of course, social interaction. And that's how you even get into stuff like group study. So I'm gonna get into it now. So tips for working in groups, it's not on my slide, but I should let you know that when you're going to work in a group, you cannot be the only one who knows the information. You need to be with a set of people that are committed to learning and a set of people that are as disciplined as you are. So some styles that worked for me is the SQ3R style. You can do it individually or you can do it in a group. But as I said, when you're going to work in a group, make sure you know who your group members are. Make sure you know who you want to associate with and pick responsible accountability partners. I think the theme or the motto of the National Student Council is responsible students make the difference. I would say that when you're picking your group members, when you're picking people who you want to study with, remember that responsible students make the difference. Responsible students will help you get to where you want to be. So the first technique, as I said, is SQ3R. It worked for me, which is to survey, question, and then read, recite, review. So this involves skimming your notes. I'm a bit nervous because one of my favorite tutors is here, Mr. Bent, and I have a test with him right after this. So I know I have to survey, question, read, recite, review. So in doing your survey, you're gonna skim your notes. As was mentioned before, you never go to your class without checking out your notes. So you have to go skim your textbook, skim the notes, skim whatever course material is presented to you. Then you ask questions. What is this about? So you're gonna query your notes. You're gonna ask the why and the how. After you ask the why and the how, you're going to actually sit and read. this requires time. So this method is a method that I use when I have time. So you're gonna read your textbook, read the paragraphs, read the sections, and then you will recite. After you recite, you can then review, which is to go back now to the textbook and compare what you just recited to what is actually in front of you. So read, recite, review, or some people would say read, recite, recall, because it's an active recall method, once again, where it involves you either talking about what you just learned or writing it down, but at some point you have to compare what you know and what is presented. So that's the SQ3R method. Another method that I know works for me is Pomodoro. So this technique, as it's here on my screen, it allows you to study at various timed intervals. So I'm going to paint a picture for you. You study, and it's based on your level of comfort and your attention span. So you know yourself best as a student. You know whether or not you can stand those 3-hour sessions, or if you can just only take information in small bits. So this technique allows you to study at various timed intervals. So you can study for, let's say, 25 minutes, and then you take a 5-minute break, and then you study again for the next 25 minutes. And that's how you break up your time, or that's how you manage your time to effectively get the information into your brain. I think it's a good memory technique, and it's good if you have a short attention span. It's good if you are not, if you don't really like those 3-hour sessions, those long times when you have people talking, if you don't like those long YouTube videos explaining, I think this might be a good method for you. But this method does come with risk. So if you do not have the discipline, or if you don't manage your time correctly, you will find that you study for 25 minutes and you spend the next 2.5 hours on TikTok. I am a victim. I won't even say I am guilty. I am a victim, because you'll find that you will get caught up in your break time and not focus on your work. So it does require discipline. It does require time management, and this method can be a little bit rigid. It might not be easy for someone who is not as committed to the task, or it might not be easy for a group of students who can be easily distracted or not fully engaged in the task at hand. Another style, I think 2 of these styles were brought up before with the previous speaker. So you have what is called reverse learning. Now, I like this method a lot. Reverse learning allows you to ask the why and the how questions before you even get to actually taking up the book. So this requires knowledge of the topic, not extensive knowledge, but it requires some knowledge. And I'm going to use the water cycle as an example. At the end of the water cycle, we know there is rain. All we know is that when the cycle is finished, there is rain. So let's say that's the only information we know about the water cycle. How do you get the rain, and why does it rain at the time when it does? Those are the questions that come up when you use this method. So it requires some knowledge of the subject.
Courtney, have we lost you? Courtney, seems as if you've lost contact.
The next, is everyone still hearing me?
I think we lost you for a bit, but then I think I got knocked off, so I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. So I just want to know, was everyone still hearing me, or do I need to go back?
We're still hearing you.
Okay, awesome. Another method is interleaved learning. This was also brought up, but it wasn't called interleaved. It was something else. But this involves knowledge transfer and association, or you link one concept to the other. So what I like to do in second year, I studied I studied some rhetorical theory in in the Department of Language, Linguistics, and Philosophy. And I took the information that I learned in second year and brought it to third year. So now in my Art of Public Speaking course, I can now write speeches on the information that I would have learned in second year. So it involves some amount of knowledge transfer, but we can take it a step further to say you can study 2 subjects in one if you're skilled enough. As I said, some of these methods are a bit rigid, but you can study 2 subjects in one. So you can take what you learned over here in the Faculty of Humanities and apply it to another course that's in another faculty. Like, for example, I have my technical writing course this evening, and that's over in the Faculty of Engineering. It's offered by Humanities, but it requires me to have some technical knowledge of some things. So what I do is I take what I learn here at Karamak, what I know about designing, and I can apply it to what I'm learning in technical writing for document design. So you associate a few concepts that you learn in one subject to another set of concepts you learn in another subject, and somehow the brain can make those types of connections. Your brain is very powerful. Do not underestimate all that you can remember. Do not underestimate all that you can do. So that is interleave learning for you. Now, this third method is blurting. This is an active recall method, and it allows you, of course, you would have had to have known more. So you would have had to have read before and studied before. When it comes to the blurting method, you need to actually pay attention in your class to actually take on this method. Now, it requires you to walk around basically and say all that you know. So after you would have read all of your textbooks, all of your course notes, what you're gonna do is you can walk and tell your friends everything about this topic. You can walk and tell your parents everything about this topic. So if I studied, as I said before, the water cycle, I would have read all my science notes. And when I'm finished, I'll go and I'll knock on my mother's door and I'll say, Mommy, let me tell you all about the water cycle. And then I'll tell her about evaporation and condensation and precipitation and how the cycle goes. So that's what the blurting method is all about. As I said, it's active recall. And by that time, you wouldn't have to be opening your book and looking back because you would have studied and this information would have been retained. So this method assumes that you would have done the groundwork to get to where you need to be. Now, requires you to be attentive in your classes. And this is the last method I'm going to touch on. And as I said, it can be done with
Still with us? Hello? We're having internet issues. All right, so let's wait a few more seconds and see if she bounces back. And then we move into Mr. Roger Bent's presentation. Which is very unfortunate because she was doing so well. All right, you're muted.
all right.
You're not having the best afternoon, aren't you?
I am not.
All right, so let's
But this is my last point.
right.
Yes. I'm gonna go back to my full screen. as I said, this is my last part. We would have gone through all of these. And as I said, this is the second brain technique. It requires you to capture your notes and keep them in one location. So you'd capture all your course content, keep it in one location. And of course, you can opt to highlight, underline, write out your notes, type them out, whatever it is, but keep all your course content in one folder. After you do that now, you'll organize your course material. So what is your written notes versus what the teacher would have posted on VLE versus what notes your friends might have captured. Every piece of content needs to be organized. After you organize your content, you're going to distill your material. So distilling, as you know, is a filtering process. You want to go through and take out what you need to know and what you don't know. And in those 100-page readings, I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but probably only 10% of the reading has what exactly you need to know. So you summarize and focus on the key points that are within your content. So in your notes, you're going to pick out all your key points. In the textbook, you're going to summarize what is there. You can either write that out or you can create what I call a mind map, which is simple. You have a little circle and then little branches going off. And so you just take out what is really important or anything that you think is important, and you create your key points there. After you've done that, you can just express what you've learned. So this can be telling others what it is that you learned. You can employ the blurting technique here. You can make videos about what you would have learned. I think we're in the age of TikTok, guys. We do in TikTok, Instagram, whatever it is. You can teach others. You can use what is actually in front of you and make it fun. Learning, studying, it doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be difficult. Find a method that works for you. Surround yourself with disciplined, responsible individuals who are just as driven as you are, and just do the best that you can do. I wish you all the best in your studying. And of course, you can reach out to me here at HUMED Academic Affairs at gmail.com, or you can find me on WhatsApp. I'm in most of the groups, and ask about mentorship with the Each One Help One program. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your patience. That's my few words.
Thank you very much, Courtney, as always. Always a pleasure having you, and you have informed us and supported our work so well. So we now come on to Mr. Roger Bent, who is the Student Services and Development Manager for the Chancellor Hall and Coordinator for the UE Public Speaking Program. Mr. Bent serves as a religious leader outside of his academic duties. He's a trained educator with expertise in emotional intelligence and critical thinking. We are so grateful to you this afternoon, Mr. Bent. You can turn on your mic because the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Griffin, and pleasant afternoon, everyone. It's such a pleasure. I have a couple of minutes with you, but I'm going to try to make it as impactful and as fun as I possibly can. And hopefully at the end of the presentation, you will have a kind of view, at least, about critical thinking, which is really where I want to share with you. And a point I think that for most of us, we want to get to if we're not already there. And this is a really simple presentation as it relates to just thinking around the spaces that you are at the moment. And sometimes I remember being in faculty and in my first year in particular, and so many things were just being said and they were going over my head. And I was just wondering, you know, did I make the right choice? Should I be here? You know, because I wasn't really realizing that I had to connect dots. And so the whole idea today is sharing with you the importance of critical thinking and problem solving, the importance of it. Let me take, well, of why it's important. Forgive the typo. The nature of critical thinking and problem solving and characteristics of effective critical thinker. I'm going to be going through those briefly, and then we can do some chat during the process, okay? So would normally do this in groups, but I don't think it's necessary given the numbers we have. But quickly, and you have at least a minute or so to think of at least 5 unique uses of a pen. Could someone start sharing or just typing in the chat in terms of thinking? Just give yourself over to the thought. Make it as wild as or as mild as you can possibly be, but think of the unique uses of a pen. Because normally all of us tend to think, well, some of us tend to think of just one use of a pen. But can we quickly look at just 3 or 5? Beautiful to record data. You know, I've never heard it like that before, but Esther, you're quite right. Drawing, writing, sketching, chewing. Beautiful, Doc. You know, that pen is such a beautiful nibbler in moments of strife and contemplation. So quite so. So I'm getting 1, 2, 3, 4. I got 4. Here I got 1 from someone else. Let me see who else is going to attempt. Anyone else is going to attempt? Maybe not, but you can think about it in your own free time as well, in terms of majority of us just see things for what they are at face value, and we've never given thought to what else it could be. How could we imagine it or reimagine it? But I keep saying to people that the reason why pens begin to have clocks on it, it begins to have timers, and it begins to have pointers, it's because somebody thought beyond the pen. And they realize that converging the technology with the pen may actually be useful to someone, right? It required critical thinking to say, this is a pen, but what else can I do with it, right? So the idea of sometimes we are sitting down in our spaces with just this one with one simple idea, and we're thinking that it is so simple. It is not simple, right? There's so many things if you give thought to it, if you delve deeply into it, that you'll realize the potential of what you have, the unique things you have with you. 10 unique uses. Imagine if you begin to think of yourself and 10 unique things that you have and how you can use it well, right? So that's where I want to begin, by this idea of opening up yourself to the idea of your uniqueness and giving thought to it. Not just what someone may have said you are, or not what a particular course may just say on an outline. I'm challenging you to look beyond that. I'm challenging you to see potentials where it may not even be stated. Right? Now, what I want you to do is to look again on these 3 definitions of what is critical thinking. Look at them for me. Just give them a glance. And I want you to extrapolate from the 3 meanings, one that you think resonates more with you. Okay? So just giving you a minute to look at the 3 different definitions and to look at one that resonates with you and why. You may open your microphone and share, or you may type it in the chat. I love to hear people talk. I'm a public speaker, so I love to hear people talk. So if you could speak, I would love that. But if you choose to write too, that's fine. Is there anyone who is choosing any particular any of the particular meanings? Any particular one jumping out at you? So number 3, examining the thinking of others to improve your own. Yes, I love that. Because I think that there's an implied concept within this, right? It means that you don't always have to be original to be critical, right? That in the whole process of sometimes looking at others' work, looking at how others thought about something, you can in turn improve upon that with your own thinking, right? So I think that's a beautiful way of thinking, that you don't always have to reinvent the wheel to be a critical thinker, right? You can actually look at improving something, and it's critical thinking, right? The person who built stairs and steps probably looked at another thinker in the early days and how that kind of leverage system worked in order to create their own systems. And then steps became escalators, and escalators elevators. And now we're looking to beam, right? So look at technology and look at how we've improved over time, each thinking, each invention, right? I'm seeing a chat here. Right, 3 as well, beautiful. So let's move on then. So we're gonna jump right into what do critical thinkers do? Because this is also important. One, you raise vital questions. It's important as a critical thinker to ask questions, to think about things, to question things. It's okay to do it. Don't allow people to say don't question, right? It's important to question. And I think some of the times, maybe one of the greatest injustices that we have done to children, maybe it's to tell them that they mustn't ask why. You know, they must stop it. Because, you know, when a child begins to ask why, it can go on and on. But it's for us to facilitate that kind of inquisitiveness. But most of us get so impatient with it. Because, you know, life is busy. We have all different kinds of things doing, but we ought not to. Because the whole idea of critical thinking is to push beyond what we see, is to keep asking questions and see when it bounces back at us, when they bounce back at us, what it is that it could possibly mean. So it's one, to raise vital questions, but it's also to formulate questions, right? So you've read something, you're thinking about something. Okay, what is a question you may want to pose? And also problems, right? And to formulate problems clearly and precisely so that others hearing it may be intrigued by it or maybe so able to solve it, right? Draw conclusions. We heard Courtney and we heard also from both presenters earlier, both from Ms. Lahman and Ms. Williams, the importance of being able to immerse yourself in the data or in the information you have, and then being able to figure out what makes sense in that information. Your ability to look at all the different components and to say, okay, so this is what is being asked of me, or this is what is being said, or these are the key points I have to focus on. Because if we are unable to draw conclusions, if we're unable to look at what are clear substantive points and clashes, we may then sometimes get caught up in this kind of sea of confusion, because everything looks important to you, right? Ever been to a point where you are trying to get clarity, and absolutely there is no clarity? Everything seems to matter. You have to get to that point where you're able to wade through all that confusion and you get to the point that matters, right? And then you're able to kind of make those connections and draw those conclusions, find solutions, right? Use relevant criteria to test them, right? You must be able to figure out if it is that this particular issue is indeed relevant and is indeed worthy of discourse. And you must be able to test it. You must be able to use other different mechanisms and other different meters to make sense of it, right? Most times, unfortunately, we are caught up in an environment where we are so locked into the PowerPoint and we are so locked into the book. Sir says we must use the text. And, God forbid if I'm going to prove that fact. I've heard some people say, listen, oh my gosh, we're so limited in how we discuss things with people because all we talk about is Jamaica. And yes, that may be the case for some sessions. We may focus a lot on Jamaica and in the context that we exist, but critical thinkers also go out of that context. They also draw reference from somewhere else. So even if the topic and the thought is heavily Jamaican, you also should be able to test that kind of theory with other realities that are happening in the world. So the importance of using relevant criteria to test your findings is very important, right? Keep an open mind, right? I know for so many of us, we are here and we're saying to ourselves, you know what, I need that paper. I'm just here to get the little paper. The quicker I get the paper, the better it is for me. I don't want anything exciting. I don't want anything challenging. I just want the paper. right? And we are locked sometimes in that kind of thinking when sometimes opportunities are waiting for us to make use of, right? And sometimes passion that we have may lead us to merge our particular degree with something else that could make or break our lives. But we don't open ourselves to that kind of thinking because we're just here for the paper. I understand the importance of the paper, believe me, but you also, as a critical thinker, must begin to see the world and all the possibilities that it will bring you, right? So you are supposed to explore and ask questions and go to seminars and look on the board and see where there's particular discussions happening and where, you know, there are particular free courses and all of those different things. You have to absorb information and get it as much as you can. Don't lock yourself into the fact that I am just a literature major, or I am just a history major, or I am just at Carimac. You have to realize the importance of putting together all those learning elements, because that is what is going to make you that kind of difference in the world. Will give you the skill sets that others don't have, right? Because you are uniquely you, and the way you will grasp content and the way you will utilize those content with the skill sets you have will make you marketable, right? So have an open mind, right? I said to someone recently that, you know, they left UWI and they did a particular degree. I think it was, you know, psychology, and they were bemoaning the fact that, you know, there's no work out there for them in psychology. And I'm thinking, but did you lend yourself to a different thinking? Perhaps, you know, like, you know, what did you learn about in psychology, and how does psychology inform the workforce? Right? Maybe you need to approach companies with a proposal. Don't wait for a company to write to tell you that they're looking for a staff. Be bold enough, walk into the room, have a concept of what you are about and exactly what the problem you want to solve. Jamaica is full of problems, both corporate and social and otherwise. Are you then able to put those together, knowing what you did in psychology and sociology, knowing your own experiences, right? An open mind is going to lead you to that kind of discovery and that boldness enough to take charge of it. Yes. Network with others. That this is the 21st century discussion, is that your network is your net worth. It's who you know sometimes in this world that can make things happen for you. It's a statement of fact, right? I'm not debating the fairness of it, but the truth is that network is your net worth, because who you may be able to call and who may be able to call you or speak on your behalf is important. That's why every single business letter or any employment ask you, where's your reference? That's your network. They are testing your network and who you know and who can vouch for you, right? So keep lines of communication open. You're in a space like UWI where you'll meet some of it. In the next couple of years, a lot of these people are going to be movers and shakers in the world in different spheres. How are you making those kinds of connections, right? How are you making value of it? Because you're not just here for your degree. You're not just here in this space that you exist in. You're here to soak up, you're here to enjoy, you're here to explore all the different things and how it may be possible. You may be thinking, oh, I am doing literatures and I don't know how that will make sense in politics. You'll be surprised. Because somehow the politician needs a speechwriter, needs a PR person, needs a writer, needs something, right? Needs an articulator. You'll be surprised to see sometimes how those things come together and how out of that you may launch your own business, your own online empire, right? Network with others and keep communication. One of the things I need to work on as a human is my communication. As much as I'm a communicator, I don't keep in touch with people as much as I should. But you also need to realize as a critical thinker that you have to be open to people and you have to let people know that you're open to them, right? We have to do better in order to make use of those kinds of opportunities. Gather information and analyze and evaluate it, right? As I said before, you're soaking up information. You are doing all you can, gathering all you can. But in so doing, you also need to make sense. You need to make sense of it. You need to think of, wait, you know, what is important for you? What part of it should I take and what other parts of it I don't need? Because sometimes we also run the risk of just having this kind of information overload, because everything someone tells us, we believe it is true, or we believe it to be so, or that it is all for us. No. Some information is yours, others aren't, but you need to look at them, you need to examine them, and then you need to choose which part of it is yours. And also the authenticity of it, you need to evaluate it. Is it, is this the kind of information you want? Is it coming from a source you trust? Do you need it to verify it? So it's coming from more than one source for you to believe it. These are all things you have to do as a critical thinker, because as you interrogate the education space and you're getting the most of it, and we're talking about a student who is moving towards success, right? You have to ensure that you're engaging your material beyond the norm. Right? It's not one textbook, it's several. It's not just a textbook, it's also what you're seeing in the news, current affairs. It's also what you would have learned and observed over your own lifetime. It's putting those together to make sense of something. Listen to others. Listen to others. Think about what they say and give feedback, right? Too often as critical thinkers, we don't have anything to say. The room goes blank. The room is silent. I've taught classes at the UWI, and I'm teaching my heart out for a whole hour. And then after that, I ask any questions, and they ask me, then, sir, will we be getting the slides? You know how that just pierced my heart? Because I'm now thinking, oh my God, I shared all this content. Let me hear their own views. Can I hear their individual voices about this? Can I hear them giving their own take, even if it's something they don't understand? Even if it's something that is tangential and way out there, I prefer if you ask me and I'll try to bring it home, right? So we are in spaces sometimes that we occupy, but we are not voicing in those spaces. We're not giving feedback, and most of the times we don't, because we are so self-conscious, right? But a critical thinker will understand that, listen, I'm going to, and you'll get the sense of what I'm saying a little later on, that you have to think to yourself, listen, I am not going to be concerned with what others are going to say about me, because I'm in the business of growing and I'm in the business of evolving, and I can't do so being quiet. I have to engage, I have to synthesize, and in so doing, I have to also talk to people, right? Dare to think outside the box. Dare to think outside the box. I talked a while ago about the fact that so many of us are coming here for particular degrees. But we're working in a world now, according to data, in the next 10 years, many of us are not going to have the traditional jobs that we have now. You're going to have to think outside the box to exist in the world that is coming. We talked a while ago about AI technology and what that is doing, because if you look at where AI technology is and what it is about to do, it's going to take away a lot of intensive labor. Where will we fall? Your ability to think and to garner skill sets that may exist is going to be what is going to put you among the employed in the world to come, or among the class that will survive in the world to come. So you have to think outside the box. You can't always think that, listen, I'm just here doing this. These days, a medical doctor is thinking outside the box, because a medical doctor is realizing that medicine is not just taking care of patients, that to actually be successful at medicine, I have to be in the business of medicine. A lawyer is realizing that if I spend all day in court just like that, it makes no sense. I have to contemplate being what? In the business of law. So for example, a medical doctor is working in Portland, he's working in St. James, he's working there, and while he's doing that, he's owning a pharmacy. He's owning a nursing home. He's owning a practice. And the lawyer is the same thing. The lawyer is having different offices here, different offices there. That's the business of law. That's the business of medicine. That's not medicine alone, right? How are we thinking of making a business out of the degree that we have, right? You have to think outside that box, because if you don't think outside the box, you're going to say to yourself, I can't wait until Prime Minister Andrew Holness call me for the work. I'm just here waiting for him to call me. Let me just sit down, let me just get the degree done, and I'm going to wait on the Prime Minister to call me, right? And you're going to wait a long time for that call, right? So you have to then begin to see, how do you make value? How do you give value to what it is that you are learning? And you have to step out of the box. You can't be in that space where everybody's running around confused. You have to know that you came to UWI for 3 years and you've got good content and good skill set, and you are now about to unleash that skill set upon the world. And when the world get that unleashedness that you're about to give them, they will have no choice but to work with you, right? You have to begin to see that. And let me tell you something. Some of the richest people in the world did not do medicine and they didn't do law. If you check Forbes top 100 list of people, The majority of them are .com Silicon Valley people. They were what? They were in the business of problem solving and critical thinking, right? So actually, some of the type of ears we hold dear to think that it will make us wealthy. If you look at it, it just makes us safe, but it doesn't necessarily bring us to the pinnacle of success. I'm not beating any doctor, no. Big up the doctor them, big up the doctor them, right? And big up the lawyer them and everybody, and big up the you lecturer them too. You know, big up everybody, right? The teachers in the classrooms and the nurses, all of those. But I'm also saying that the teacher in the classroom, if applied critical thinking, could also find additional ways of earning and additional ways of pushing the envelope. There's no reason for a teacher not to observe issues in a school and write a grant to USAID or write a grant to Chase Fund and ask the Chase Fund to sponsor to the tune of millions of dollars a particular project. There's no reason for the teacher not to be able to do that. And that teacher can sit down there and project after project develop him or herself to become extremely successful, such that the person move into consultancy and may even end up working for the UN or the World Bank. The potential. So I am not ruling out any particular work. A taxi driver who is driving toot along the road, if he understands critical thinking and he knows he observes the transportation industry and he applies critical thinking, and outside of that box he begins to see himself. Right? You'll be surprised to see the kind of empire he's going to build in the transportation industry. It may even move over into the telecommunications industry, into the movie industry, into the tourism industry. You may never know. Dare to think outside the box. And then I want to share some ideas of thought. Who says that crayons are just for kids? Who said that? Right? So many times we've accepted that as a fact. But you know what? How many persons know that nowadays you have adult crayon books? Who came up with that one? Critical thinking. And and adults are just loving this idea of coloring books, you know, because we need that kind of release as well. We need that kind of escape, and that is what this whole process will offer us, right? So it's a creative side of us that if we give into, it may also lead to other areas of creativity, right? Who says that art has to hang in a gallery to be worthy of admiration? Who says? Right? Why can't I wear art? Why can't I be art? You know, who says it has to be stationary in a place that is observed by all? Who is going to push the envelope and redefine art for the new generation? Right? Art is not just the physical. Art is nowadays are both tangibles and intangibles, because you have NFTs and all those things that are emerging in the online world, and people are now looking at those kinds of things. The world is changing, everybody, and the more we give critical eye to it, is the more we're realizing just how we can change and evolve and move with the flow. Who says that if you don't do it right, don't do it at all? Who said that? Who said that you must be always right and that sometimes you can't be wrong? Who said that you must always pass and sometimes can't fail? Right? If you fail, so what? It just means you're going to try again. And sometimes some persons who have actually risen to the top of the pile have actually had to deal with early bouts of failure, early bouts of being wrong, because some people have grew up on the wrong side of the track, right? Only to find the right way. So who says if you don't do it right, don't do it at all? So many of us have judged ourselves wrongly. We don't give ourselves a chance because we fear failure. Embrace it. Because by embracing it, it doesn't mean that you're a failure. It means you understand it. It means you can manipulate it and you will overcome it, right? So those are things that I think it's important to look at. Positions and standpoints, critical thinking. You see, for us, it's about, we are not black and white. Everything has a shade of gray. It's about deep diving into things. Things are not just linear. It's interdisciplinary. You know, knowledge is open, it's not closed, right? That's how we see things. How do we ask questions? How do we make sense of things? Listen, we strive to know how, right? Not always to be about what to think, but how to think, right? We're about originality and authenticity. We're not just about secondhand information and what someone else may say. Because we're living in a world now where so many of us take everything we see on social media as truth. And we don't give it any originality or any sort of insight at all, right? Multiple frames of reference. This idea that we have to interrogate the things that we talk about, the things that we learn. We need to look at it from varying different perspectives. We heard Courtney talk about this idea that, listen, I learned something here and I put it here and I put it there and I put it here. I'm testing it. I'm changing the frame to see, how many frames it can fit into. Because the more frames it fit into in my world, is the more it makes sense to me, is the more empowered I am to use that particular material. Strategies for thinking. Question. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Be bold. People may not like it, but so what? So what? Ask questions, right? So don't doubt, because that's another thing. Don't doubt yourself. Another thing that is also not critical thinking, ego. So what if people laugh at you? Make them keep laughing. When they laugh, you just keep your head straight and show pride, because you know what you're about. You know why? Because you are understanding that if you don't ask questions and learn, on the other side of that is stagnance, right? So be active, not passive. Be collaborative. Always be interested in working with others and building community, right? Not always being the boss and you have to win and you have to be the person who is on top all the time, right? You can be in the middle sometimes. You can be in the back sometimes. And because all of those places are places of learning and places of growing and places of sharing and places of growth, right? Why is critical thinking important? Because it educates you for a lifetime. It's not for a particular course. It's going to take you beyond that. Critical thinking skills are necessary for success in many fields, right? Because it's in fact, for success in any field, you have to be a critical thinker. And critical thinkers are less likely to go along with the crowd. Because for too long, so many of us are so comfortable with the crowd. In fact, maybe we're not even comfortable with the crowd. We're just not bold enough to step away from the crowd. But critical thinking says, listen, I know my worth, I know what I'm able to do, and I'm not going to go along a path simply because it's popular, right? Critical thinking says, you know who you are, you know your worth, and I'm going to take this path. It may not be the path that is popular, but it's a path I believe in, it's a path of conviction, and I'm going with it. Elements of critical thinking, observation. From a series of observations, we come to establish what is true. We come to establish fact. From a series of facts, we make inferences. And those we are testing. We're looking at the validity of it, whether it makes sense and in what ways it makes sense. From those, we make assumptions, and from our assumptions, we come up with opinions. And those opinions will, again, be used in how we logically develop argument, and then we talk about arguments, right? So we see how, if we're a critical thinker, that argument doesn't come at the first thing. It's coming from number one, from observation, all the way down to number 6. So if you are a good essay writer, you have to have all of these type of skill set, or you're supposed to be owning them, developing them, because for you to be able to get to number 7, where you're now giving critical analysis, you're looking at competitive and comparative information and putting it together in synthesis. You have to be able to understand the whole process of critical thinking, yeah? And, well, I'm going to skip this. I'm going to skip this. Skip this in the interest of time. Yes, I'm going to skip this. Yes, ways of developing critical thinking. One is interaction. Ask open-ended questions. Open-ended questions are those questions that is asking how and why and when and how, not the yes and no answers. Allow sufficient time for reflection. If you notice the first part of this particular slide, it talked a lot about reflection in the definition for critical thinking, because reflection is important. It's about making those kinds of connections. It's about going back to realize what was said, what do you know, and how they come together. So reflectiveness is an important part of critical thinking, yes? Apply knowledge to other domains. We spoke about that. Relate issues to life experiences, right? Take time to think. Practice thinking. Don't underestimate the value of being a thinker, because it's going to change you. It's going to position you to places that you normally wouldn't have gone. It's gonna bring you to that aha moment. Sometimes I'm just a thinker and I just think wild things sometimes I won't share with you. But because I've practiced thinking so much, the amount of things that come to me and they come to me in different places, right? But you have to lend yourself over to that kind of process because you'll be surprised sometimes the breakthroughs you'll get. Now, how can these proverbs help students to improve their critical thinking? That nothing questions, nothing learns. If you are ashamed to ask questions, you will only lose your way. Questioning is the door to knowledge. He who asks a question is a fool for 5 minutes while the people laugh. He who does not ask a question remains that word forever. It is not disgraceful to ask. It is actually disgraceful not to ask. Thanks so much, everybody, for your time. Have a good rest of the evening.
No, thank you very much for your time and very detailed presentation. It's excellent as usual. And I'm so grateful that these sessions are recorded and others will benefit from our time together this afternoon. All right, we are over time actually. And so there being no other question, I would imagine. You know how to find us. You definitely know how to find me at stanley.griffin@uimono.edu.jm. And so if you have any question, feel free to send them to me and I will disperse. We will meet again next Thursday for our last session in this series. And until then, keep practicing what you've learned today. And we can keep on improving our learning capacity. All right, thanks for joining us. See you all next Thursday. And bring someone with, I mean, the more the merrier, right? So we resume next Thursday at 2:30 for our final session. Thanks again to the presenters. Good afternoon.